And welcome back to the Northland Sports Page, hour number 2. Be sure to check out hour number 1 here on YouTube. Be sure to check out all of our YouTube videos because, guys, that's how we keep this show alive in COVID-19 times. YouTube has been a savior for us.
YouTube's been a savior for the country. YouTube, between YouTube, Zoom, and now Facebook Live, goodness gracious, that's been basically the sole way of social interaction.
Yeah, I tell you what, the technology. If you had stock in Zoom in early March, you're feeling pretty good right now because they've been absolutely zooming up their value of their business. And I tell you what, also the amount of bandwidth that people are using at their home internet right now is going up quite a bit as well.
Yes, technology is somewhat of a big deal right now, whether it's Zoom or a house party or Zooming your way to a house party. It's making it happen. It's making this show still happen. Guys, what we've done the last few weeks is we've done fantasy drafts for Minnesota sports teams. We've tackled basketball. We've tackled baseball. We've tackled football. No pun intended. It's time to tackle hockey, and it might be the toughest or it might be the easiest because we've got two franchises to play with.
Yeah, so we broke it up. Having two franchises to tackle really expanded the talent pool to the point where we thought there'd be guys who wouldn't be mentioned. So we are actually doing these separate, right?
We are. We're going to do these in the order in which Minnesota had them. We're going to lead with the North Stars, and then we're going to go to the Wild after that. It's going to be interesting to see what's easier because we're going to have more familiarity with the Wild. But you look at the North Stars and you go, man, I forget how deep their history was. And we were talking before we started, is their history, to tie it back in with hour number 1, perhaps not properly appreciated either?
Oh, I agree with that 100% because I was going to bring something into the draft, Brian, a clarification in the draft to you because I don't think Topher will remember. Do we get to include the Cleveland Barons in this? Dennis Maruk, that whole group that came over from Cleveland when they put the two programs together?
Right. See what this is teaching me? Much like the NFL draft, I have a feeling in this draft, when it gets to proverbial day 3, I'm going to go, Dave, just pick somebody for me. Tell me about somebody.
I think if they wore the North Stars N at some point, I think they have to be included. Are we going to do like a 3-year minimum thing again? I don't know if there's as many guys with the Jack Morris rule that did it or not, but
I think we could. I think we could certainly do that. I'm just going to tell you right now, there might not be a player or two more than that on my team that'll have played before earlier than I was born. I think if it goes back to 1979, that's how I'm going to determine my eligibility for my team.
Maybe with North Stars, then we can dump that rule. So if there's somebody with the
I agree. Someone you remember. Yeah, and also I think because with the Twins, we didn't bring Washington Senators players into it, so I think that kind of works with the Cleveland Barons as well.
All right.
Well, and not to mention that these North Star players, technically in franchise history, would now be part of a Dallas Stars draft, if you want to be specific. As much as it hurts, it's the truth. Yeah. And why would that be, Topher?
Because Norm Green sucks.
All right, now we're ready. Dave, why don't you recap the draft order because it was moderated by your wife, and these results are going to sound pretty familiar from previous drafts.
Isn't it ridiculous? But she did. She had them in a bucket. There was no preconceived. We didn't know who was going to represent the number 1, number 2, number 3. And Topher, this is getting a little specific because Brian once again is drafting 3rd.
Yeah, exactly. You and I have flip-flopped who has the first overall pick a couple times, but yep, as usual, Brian bringing up the rear and gets to be the first pick of the second round. However,
all right. So here's the question because we can all talk about the first round pick. Do I pick the best player or do I pick my favorite player from the North Stars? Do I want the guy who's going to help me win, or do I want the guy who I'll be most happy to say, hey, look who I got on my team?
Well, let me say this. With the other drafts that we've done, you may have feared the guys drafting around you stealing from you because our opinions are the same.
Yeah.
If you've got somebody in mind, barring the complete obvious, Topher and I'm going to give Topher a lot more credit than me because he's a hockey guru in comparison. But I got a feeling the age gap difference, even amongst all 3 of us, is probably going to show here.
I don't know about that. I think that the North Stars were pretty. They've got depth, but for the most part, they're pretty star heavy at the top here. So, all right.
I see what you did there. Star heavy would make sense.
So with the first overall pick, then I need to pick the best North Star and not my favorite North Star, and that is Neil Broughton.
All right. Neil
That's a good
Broughton
pick.
is off the board with pick number 1. Now, we should
That's
explain that
very
we are just doing forwards when it comes to forwards. We are not deciphering between center, right wing, left wing. We are going to teach guys to play whatever position we want them to play, much like Topher had 3 middle linebackers not too long ago. Speaking of being in the middle, you are the middle pick. Go ahead, sir.
I am the middle pick, and I tell you what, this is really hard right now because you're right, Dave. There's players all over. I want all these guys on my team, and who do I go with? Neil Broughton's a great pick there with the first overall. I think he's probably the greatest player in North Stars history.
I agree.
As far as with the time with the North Stars, but I'm going to go with Mike Modano.
That's the other guy.
Second.
Gee, that's a big shock. And gee, I hate being third.
But there's plenty of guys still out there, man. This is going to be interesting.
There is. This will be the only.
Isn't it fascinating though the difference between Broughton and Modano? Because one put all the points up and is their best player, but Modano is probably everybody's favorite player.
Right. That goes back to everything we talked about in hour number 1 because Modano was the favorite when it was more visible.
Yeah.
It was a bigger deal.
But I also think that if the North Stars hadn't moved away, Mike Modano would have surpassed Neil Broughton in all of those franchise records as well.
Yep, I agree. Okay, Brian.
Oh, joy. I get to go twice. How fun is this? Third pick, my first. Dino Ciccarelli.
Good call.
Yeah.
It's the first 3 basically went according to chalk.
Yeah.
Fourth pick, I'm going to reach only because he was my favorite player because he had my first name, Brian Bellows.
I was going to pick him next.
I think we're chalk.
No, I think, Brian, if you look at points during their time as North Stars, Brian Bellows.
I think he's only behind Broughton. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a very good pick right there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
Brian's got goal scorers 2 and 3.
He does. Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm gonna go with a former first overall pick, Bobby Smith.
You stink. He was one of my favorites growing up.
I knew that, and when I took Brian Bellows, my thought process was, well, I save Bobby Smith for Dave. I forgot about Topher Davis getting in the way. Sorry, Dave.
That's
that's all right. Bobby Smith was when I say we need a number 1 center, I know there's all kinds of number 1 centers throughout history of hockey. Number 1 center in my brain, when I see one, it's always Bobby Smith that shows up. He's also one of my favorite things about Bobby Smith. He was the instigator of that ridiculous line brawl that they had with the Red Wings in a playoff series. He was the guy that nobody thought would start swinging, and he was just wailing away. All right, so I have to go with 2 here, right? All right.
Topher, this is going to be like the NFL draft. North Stars lore is going to be the Dave Cook show.
No, I love it. I love talking about this stuff because especially that when we've been talking about reliving previous games and things, videos during this time of no sports. I've been watching a lot of old North Star stuff. I think that's probably been the most common thing I've been searching on YouTube.
So you're telling me that Brian Hayward has a chance? No. No. If you want to look at Anthony Young type numbers, Anthony Young of pitching, it's Brian Hayward for the North Stars.
All right, I'm going with the first defenseman, and that's Craig Hartsburg. And then I'm going to go off the board, and I'm going to take Dave Gagne.
I don't think that's off the board at all because it was planning to be my next pick. So thank you very little.
That's a good pick. So now we're back to me. Do I flush out my forwards? Dave started the defenseman run a little bit.
Well, maybe it's time to go goalie, Toph.
Yeah, I mean, me and my goalies. But the thing is, I like a lot of the North Stars goalies. So there's a few guys there that I would love to have on that team.
Truthfully, Minnesota professional hockey's been pretty blessed with goaltenders.
That is pretty true. That is pretty true if you think about it. And they've been able to take guys that maybe didn't do a ton in other places. They played really well in Minnesota professional hockey.
Yep.
But I'm going to go with a legend, had his number up in the rafters, Bill Goldsworthy.
Have I mentioned I hate going behind Topher? This just isn't very fun.
Come on.
So again, this is why you write your picks down, and I don't write anything. But if you write your picks down, you do it in pencil, because as you wait, you erase. So all of a sudden, I need to think a little bit more, and I wasn't planning on having to think because the two forwards that I had in mind both went right in front of me. So I'm going to go with some sentiment here for my last forward, and I'm going to go with JP Parise.
That's not a bad pick.
No, I actually looked at him, and I was thinking quite a bit about possibly bringing JP on there, but I don't. He was a very, very good player in his own right. Obviously, Zach, now playing for the Wild, has kind of brought him back into prominence a little bit, and his unfortunate passing a few years ago. But JP with the North Stars, very good pick.
And then I'm going to take. There were two defensemen to choose between. They both have an affinity for Edina, and I'm going to take Kurt Giles.
You got me now.
Yes. Are you going with the other affinity for Edina guy?
It's turnabout's fair play. Let's see what Topher does with it.
I'm going to go with Brad Maxwell.
Good boy.
Defenseman.
All right. So I have pick of every other forward because you guys are done. Topher's got Modano, Bobby Smith, and Billy Goldsworthy. Brian's got Dino, Bellows, and JP Parise. So, I'm going to pick my favorite defenseman. You guys both know that. So, I had to think about my other forward. I could go goaltender here, too, because I have pick of the litter there as well. So, I'm going to go, like, really old school with the goalies, Toph. So, I'll let you have the more recent one. And my goaltender is going to be Gump Worsley. I'm going with Gump.
I love that.
He's the original I'd rather be lucky than good guy. That when I first heard that quote, it was attributed to Gump Worsley.
Oh.
So I'll just take him now. I'm taking Louis. Nanny's gonna be my second defenseman.
And the entire northern half of the state is booing.
Louis Nanny is my second. He's also a Gopher, just saying.
He's right. A Gopher.
And this is not drafting color commentators, because if it was, Topher Davis would go first.
But yeah, Louis is not a bad pick when you think about it. He also has that versatility. If you want a defenseman who can jump up and play wing a little bit, there's Louis Nanny. You can film him.
Yep, you want to take a defenseman who can jump up and play general manager, you can do that too.
Yeah, exactly. But back to Gumper a little bit. I love that pick. Gump Worsley. He's a legend. I think he was kind of like Ilya Brizgalov before Ilya Brizgalov. If there was more media for Gump Worsley, he would have been the most quotable guy in the National Hockey League.
He'd have been Don Cherry.
Absolutely. I love it. And I've got a little fitty back. When I very first started playing goalie, coach called me Gumper all the time, and that was because of Gump Worsley, and I love it. Maybe because of the more lucky than good was probably because of that.
Are you sure it was because of Worsley and it wasn't because of Forrest? Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure because that movie hadn't come out yet.
Okay, but, perfect. I know it's one of the few that you've seen, so I wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the mask. He liked your mask.
Yeah, that could have been it, too.
Uh-oh.
So,
Topher, you always warn me about poltergeists. By the way, your Wild background just hit the deck.
Did it just fall?
It did.
Oh, boy.
It did. We've got technical backdrop issues.
That's all right. We'll try to get it up before things go. We're not even talking about the Wild yet. That's the problem.
But Dave started the running dogs.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
I just thought the Marion Gabrick jersey heard the latest pick and it fainted.
That could have been it. Dave started the goalie run. I'm going to make sure I get John Casey. I'm taking him right now.
I kind of thought you might, and that's disappointing for me. But at least this time I was playing point counterpoint. I went with this round with that in mind. So I'm going to finish off my defenseman with Mark Tenorti. And then I'm going to take my goalie just because I loved him and he wore Topher's favorite number. I'm going to take Don Beaupre.
That's a good pick too.
It really is a good pick.
Or Cesar Maniago, though.
Beaupre is the guy who, and Malash is not on here.
And
Yeah,
where's
Gillian
Darcy?
Roche, yep.
Where's Darcy Wakaluk? Where's Terry Taco when you need him?
I thought you were like,
They're both
no,
sitting on the bench behind John Casey.
Darcy's
No,
a wild
Dave thought
player.
I was talking about Kemper when I brought up
Yes,
Darcy.
I did.
No, I want Wakaluk. Terry Taco, baby. Let's go.
All right, so Brian, you're done. Toph, you need a defenseman and I need a forward.
Yep, I am picking my defenseman here. Who do I want? Brian, you just took Mark Tenorti, right?
Yes, he did.
I did.
Yeah,
my favorites.
That's a good pick. Yeah, that's a good pick.
Here's who
I was eyeing up a little bit.
Here's where the number of years in a Wild uniform, in a North Star uniform, can impact you.
Yeah.
Because there's one guy who was ridiculous but didn't play very long for us.
I don't. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go on the older side. I'm gonna go with Gordy Roberts.
Great pick. That was my other debate. He or Tin Man.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Jimmy Johnson? Where's Jim Johnson?
Yeah, Darian Hatcher.
Darian Hatcher played for us for 2 years and was the guy.
Well, the only reason he only played for us for 2 years is because it was the last 2 years they existed here.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So forward, there's a couple of names. This is one of those, do you go with best or do you go with favorite? Steve Payne is a rock star. Tommy McCarthy. When I think of Tommy McCarthy, he's the guy when they changed pipes from the steel pipes to the more flexible pipes. I remember him getting tripped up on a rush and blowing a knee out on the steel pipe. So I passed on Madonna to go with the best player in North Star's history. So I think I'm going to, shoot. I want to win. That's the thing. So I want to take Bukestad because I loved Scott Bukestad. But I think I'm going to have to go with Steve Payne. I'll go with Painter.
All right. Dave's bringing the pain. So is it time to recap our teams because everybody's done, correct?
Yep.
Or do you want to discuss who didn't get picked? But I think something going this fast with this few, there's way too many.
Yeah, there's a lot
out there.
According to total points, Tim Young is the first guy that didn't get picked. After that,
Tim Young, you've got Danny Grant, Al McAdam.
Yep, you're looking at the same list I'm looking at then.
I'm so disappointed to say that this was the first time that I had to Google something to help me.
Because, you're fine.
Well, I know it's allowed. I've seen you two at work, but every other draft that we've done, I've been so proud to say top of my head. This particular draft, I probably could have done 3 or 4 guys top of my head and reached.
Yeah, you got 2 of the 3 to start with.
Yeah. So recap your teams. Forward 1, Dave.
My forward line is Broughton, Dave Gagne, and Steve Payne.
Okay, we can do it that way too. Forward line, Topher.
I got Bobby Smith centering Mike Modano and Bill Goldsworthy.
I've got Dino with Brian Bellows and J.P. Parisi. Your D pairing, Dave.
Craig Hartsburg and Louis Nanny.
I love your D pair. Well, I don't if I factor in personality, but if we're doing just on the ice, love your D pair.
I'm going with, I got Brad Maxwell and Gordy Roberts.
I've actually got a D pair that I think played together. Tin Man, Mark Tenorti, and Kurt Giles.
I think that all of our D pairs are pretty good. I mean, I agree, I'll take mine, but I think your guys are both good.
I think we're only going goalie. 6 guys deep.
Where does the puck stop? Yeah, this is the quickest draft ever. That was about 10 minutes.
The goalie is Gump Worsley for me.
Goalie, John Casey.
Mine was the first I ever paid attention to, Donnie Beaupre.
So I think Topher has the best forwards, and I'm not even sure it's close.
I don't know. It'd be fun to watch for sure. It'd be a fun little all-star
no question.
Game.
No question. You got Madonna and Goldsworthy. You're looking pretty good, no matter who the third one would be.
With Bobby Smith, the number 1 overall pick. Yeah,
right.
That's a pretty solid forward line. Brian's is going to score. I don't know what mine's going to do. Mine's all right. Broughton is the best player on the board.
Broughton's going to be a grind. Yeah, Broughton's the best overall player.
Mine's going to score, but neither of them are going to want to pass to one another. So Topher said, you don't see guys go coast to coast. My team's going to try.
I love it.
So now we're switching, right?
Well, it wouldn't make sense to do it again. So, yes, let's go to the Wild from here.
All right.
So we get Topher through the Norm Green therapeutic session. The North Stars have moved.
Yep.
Topher's rocking back and forth in a padded room. But he's prepared to draft the Wild team. Same order, because I love being last. Here we go.
With the first overall pick from the Minnesota Wild, Dave drafts Marian Gaborik.
There's an utter shock.
No surprise there.
Stunned beyond belief.
There's no doubt that he is. I mean, I think there's other good players, but I think he's the best, most talented player from his time, especially with Minnesota for a while, I think.
Marian Gaborik.
Uh-oh. Ah, yeah.
I wonder
why Gaborik jersey, but
I wonder why Topher's jersey hit the ground. He's like, I'm out of here. I know I'm not going to end up on this team.
Yeah, you got to Dave. All right, so now I'm up.
It would have been really cool if the jersey would have fell down behind you and somehow appeared behind Dave. That would have been neat.
That would have been cool.
That would have been impressive. All right, so now I got a little decision here. Second overall pick. I'm going to go with, I feel like I got to do it, Zach Parise. Taking him forward.
Well, now I got to think for one of mine. But I'm going to go back to doing this without looking at anything. So I'm literally going to shoot from the hip with my favorite players. So I'm going to take Brian Ralston, because all he did was score 30 goals year after year here.
Yep.
And then I'm going to draft basically the same type of player. I'm going to take Andrew Brunette.
Those are good picks. You left, I wanted to take a little surprise here, but you left a guy hanging out there.
Don't do it, Topher. Don't do it.
What?
Don't do it.
But I also know Dave's got 2 picks before it comes back to me, and there's a guy I don't want to miss out on. I'm going to fill a defenseman spot right now. I'm going Brent Burns.
Don't do it, I said.
But wait a minute. Can I ask why he's coveted with the Wild? Because before he left, he didn't do anything here.
He scored, man.
He did not here. He did not score here. No.
He was a good player here with Minnesota.
Good,
he wasn't the level he was now.
Right. For an all-time team, I'd take him. If you're playing fantasy hockey, he stunk here.
I don't know about stunk. That stunk's a bit of an exaggeration. He was an all-star.
He was a very defensive defenseman here. He is not that now.
He played forward for a while here under Jacques Lemaire.
That's right. They moved him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he played wing under Jacques Lemaire for a while. All right, Dave. Sorry about that, but I didn't want to miss it.
I almost picked him first overall.
Wow.
All right, so I've got Gaborik. So I think that I need to. Dang, man. I know Brian's gonna want that guy, so I don't want to do that. You all know I'm gonna have to take that guy because of whom I'm married to.
Yeah, we know that guy.
So, all right. So I've got 2 picks in a row here. I'm going to finish my forward room. I'm going to give you guys plenty of players left to go. I'm taking PMB. I'm taking Pierre-Marc Bouchard, and I'm taking the one that'll save my marriage. I'm taking Nino.
Very nice. You knew he was going to go there. I
knew Nino was going.
Yeah. I didn't know if he'd go this high, but it makes sense. But he had to.
No, and I like the PMB pick. He's a guy. If he didn't have his concussion issues, he was a player, man. He very skilled, fun guy to watch play. I can't believe this guy's still hanging out here, and I feel like it's because of all this current discussion on him. But
and you're going to take him right in front of me. Oh, that's fine.
I got to take Mikko.
I'm
taking Mikko Koivu. Nope.
He's like Mauer to me. He's plenty good, and I just can't take him because he's treated better than he's played.
I don't. I feel like he's disrespected right now compared to how.
So I hand wrote a note because I'm trying to be more like Brian and not have to do a lot of research. Mikko's not on this list of about 30 guys I have.
But see, I don't do a lot of research, and I would bet that the consensus is that my teams end up pretty bad. So it's basically who does Brian remember liking? And I think I have the excuse of every team that we've had. I've gone third, so you can say, well, he's not expected to do as well. But I think if you look, my teams have not been very good, and I'm strangely comfortable with that.
See, I disagree because most of the teams we've drafted for are about 4 or 5 players deep. And so I think you get the third and fourth players in a 5-player draft. You know what I mean?
Sometimes. Yeah, it's a good spot to be in round 1. As we go on, it's not the best. This one might be better because you've only got 6 rounds. When we were into baseball and football in round 15, not the most admirable spot. Trust me. All right, so I've got 2. I need a defenseman. I like this guy, and most people don't. I don't have a salary cap to worry about. I'm taking Ryan Suter.
That's a good pick. I don't think that's a problem at all.
No,
I was debating him that last time too.
That might be the best Wild defenseman of all time. So good work.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. I'm not really sure who I want to take in the next pick because it's just you get into a mess now where they were pretty good but not pretty good for very long. And I'm actually really struggling with this. There are guys that were okay here, but they were better everywhere else. You know, I would love to take guys that pit stopped here and we're fine. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to take Pavel Demitra.
That's a good pick.
Really good hockey player. I'm not sure he's a really good member of the Wild, but a really good hockey player.
Yeah. No, that's not a bad pick. Yeah, now we're on to me, and I've got 4 defensemen or a goaltender here. From the Wild time. I'm going to go with I'm going with Jason Zucker as a forward.
It's going to be fun to have the Granlund argument. Is Dave the reason Granlund didn't get picked because he felt pressured?
That's the guy that I was debating over right there.
I am going to pick 2 defensemen then, and one of them for me is fairly easy, and that's Spurgeon.
Oh wow! I thought the other one was going to be easier. I'm curious who it is now.
Well, in a way, Brian, I'd like to leave him here for you, but I don't think he makes it back across if I don't take him. So do we give Topher Schultz or do I take him here? Well, I guess because I don't want Topher to have him, I'm going to take Schultz. Wait a minute. Can I change that quick?
Sure. I don't think Topher was officially on the clock.
I want to have a jersey up too.
I think the attorney can call it a mistrial.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, there goes the.
I can't believe you were. Yeah, I thought for sure you were going to take Philippe Kuba right there.
I thought so too.
That's who I took. Philippe Kuba.
Philippe Kuba. Okay. So I've got a D and a goalie I need to fill out here. I got Brent Burns, so I got an offensive defenseman.
In San Jose.
2 offensive defensemen. I don't like this guy. I don't want to take him.
Turnover machine who will score? Are you going to take him?
I already got one of those.
You're going to take the guy with the really good wheels.
Good wheels.
Yeah. The turnover machines guy.
I'm thinking I'm going to go. All right, I'll do it. I'm taking Dumba. It'll be fun to watch.
It will be. Boy, you got a lot of offense on your blue line, especially if Brent Burns plays San Jose style for the Wild. But, yeah, who's going to cover for who in that group?
Yeah, exactly. They'll figure it out.
Mikko will, right?
Yeah, Mikko will be back there.
So I'll take the antithesis. Topher's got goals galore in his defense. I'm going to have the most boring vanilla defense ever because I will take Nick Schultz along with Ryan Suter. So I've got slap shots that couldn't, even impact paper,
You
but they'll
have
be
wrist
fun to
shot.
have.
Yes, you have
Yes.
wrist shot.
Yes, exactly. And then I need a goalie. We haven't had one taken yet, and that's what stinks because none of them are great. None of them are terrible. Dubnik makes the most sense for numbers with the Wild, at least barring recent discussion. So I just talked all about Devin Dubnik, so give me Dwayne Rollison. I'll take him.
I wanted Topher to take Roley because I would think that would be fire wagon hockey at its greatest. When Roley was good, he was very, very good. When he was bad, it was just almost comical.
So we got goal. I need a goalie. We got a lot of, you mentioned goalies out there. Dubnik's numbers with the Wilds are great. There's a guy that I love that I think that he would have been right up there. But I'm gonna do it all, and I'm gonna go back to a guy that stole some games and big games, Manny Fernandez.
You did take him. I wasn't sure you were going to do that.
Taking Manny Fernandez as my goalie.
I loved him, and I think we all did because he was the first one.
Yep. All right, so you've given me the one that I didn't think was going to be there, and it's almost a no-brainer. And hat tip to Devin Dubnik, I'm taking Backstrom.
Yeah, I agree. Backstrom, I think, is probably the best goalie in the Wild's history.
Yeah, I was like, why aren't you taking him?
I agree.
Why did Jamie McLennan get left out? Where's Brizgalov? Where's Josh Harding?
Josh Harding's the guy I wanted.
Josh Harding would be legit. Yeah.
He would have been, I think if he didn't have his tragic MS, I think he would have been a very, very good starting goalie for a long time.
Yep.
I wanted to get the judges' ruling on taking Darby just because I want Darby on my team.
But I thought that would be the opposite for your wife because your wife loves Nino. Your wife got decked by Darby. Would you want that?
Right. See, that's why I needed that balance. But that's also why I didn't take him. I love Darby Hendrickson. He's a great guy, but I can't, because of wanting to stay safe at home.
So we did it.
Safe at
we
home.
did
I
it
love it
with the other teams. We can do a combo platter here. We have to pick coaches. We don't have to pick a Wild coach and a North Star coach. We can do a combo platter here. You can pick a North Star coach to coach your Wild group if you'd like. So who's coaching your hockey team overall?
Who's first?
You are.
So I can choose any. So with my forwards, there's really only one coach with my forwards. He wasn't there a long time, but he's the biggest name. I'm taking Herbie Brooks.
That's a pretty good call. It's hard to argue against him.
It's all about creativity with my forward group.
Yeah. This is interesting because I've got a lot of guys who like to fly around and score a lot of goals.
Yeah, you do.
So do
you take F-Bomb City, who can just swear up and down at him but enjoy the style? I dare you to take Coach Trapp, if you will, with your guys.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Is maybe they'll teach him to play a little.
You guys have quit.
Oh man, who?
Or do you take the Pride of Edina?
Oh yeah, I don't know about that.
You could only have him when it was between you and Brian though, because I've already got him at D.
Right.
You do exactly.
That's like the Percy Harvin rule. That's the Percy Harvin rule. I couldn't take him as a returner because Dave had him as a wideout. Can we have a player coach? We got a Pete Rose on Dave's team.
I'm going with Gainey.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, I love it.
From the North Stars era. Let those
that
guys
would have
fly
been
a little bit.
That was going to be my surprise. That was going to be my Jerry Burns of this draft. But so much for that.
Sorry.
So I got to go with Jacques. I got to go with my boring defensemen have got to play for Jacques. And quite frankly, because for the North Stars, I didn't know who else I would have slid in there. And I'm not a big enough Boudreau fan to go with it. I could have gone with the UMD Bulldog connection, even though he was terrible. I could have taken Coach Richards, but I got to go with Jacques.
I think that I should have picked Sonmore. That was the choice for me. It was between Brooks and Sonmore.
So are the Wild a little more of an open door of obviously who didn't we pick? Now you've got very limited picks. You've got limited participants. You've got, this was the quickest draft we've ever done to do two in about, 35, 40 minutes. But with the Wild, is it more of I can't believe we didn't pick this guy? Because the North Stars had a heyday. You could argue the Wild really didn't or haven't yet. So there were a lot of average to above average. And then, of course, you can recap who we've got first. Dave, go ahead.
Sure. So forward lines for Dave, it's Gabrick, Pierre-Marc Bouchard, and Nino. For Topher, it is Parisi, Koivu, and Zucker. And for Brian, it's Rolston, Bruno, and Pavel Dimitra.
All right. Decors.
Dave's is Jared Spurgeon and Philippe Kuba. Topher is Brian Burns and Matt Dumba in the all offense defensive.
I got to chuckle a little bit
Hey,
here
Brent.
because Brian Burns graduated from East with my sister. I believe he's got Brent
Yeah.
Burns, even though
Brent,
I'll still
Brent,
argue
yeah.
that unless you're going with Brent at San Jose, I'm not all that impressed with Brent with the Wild. He had double-digit goals twice.
And Brian has Mr. Suter and Mr. Schultz. And in goaltend, I have Backstrom. Manny Fernandez is Topher's goalie, and Rolly the goalie is Brian's goalie.
So my team is going to try to win everything 2-0. Just telling you right now.
And Topher's going to try to beat you 6-4.
Yeah, exactly. Go back to the high-flying 80s and 90s hockey, baby.
Yeah.
All
tell you
right.
what, Topher's is the one people pay money to watch.
Absolutely. I will have mine will have crowds similar to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the LA Chargers. Nobody's coming to watch my team.
I don't know about that.
I love Michael
No, it's
Kadire.
fun.
My team is like Michael Kadire's of hockey.
You know, the difference
That's
here
interesting.
between the North Stars and the Wild is stars. Not the North
Yeah.
Stars, but the North Stars had, Hall of Fame guys. They had goal scorers galore. And the Wild
Right.
kind of have one. They have other guys that could do some things, but it was kind of Gabrick, and then, surprised nobody picked Kirilloff. I suppose it's because hasn't signed yet, but at least he can score.
Well, isn't it a little bit like, and I feel a little bit morbid when I discuss this, but it's a little bit like a resume or an obituary. Because basically you're saying if you were around for 100 years, you probably did more than something that's around 20 years. That's the basis of what you just said. The Wild don't have stars if they've been around long enough to have them.
Yeah, they've just always been
Right.
the team drafting 10th. North Stars drafted
Yep,
first
they're
every third year.
drafted around that time, and when the Wild have had success, it's on the it's guys having career years and then kind of disappearing a little bit. Guys that go grind. Wes Wall's out there, grinding away. You mentioned Darby. He's a guy that Wild fans remember. He scored a huge goal, scoring the first goal in the XL Energy Center. But
Other guy, Stefan.
he's not a star. Yeah,
Well,
Stefan Bayou. I mean,
Pavel
I don't
Dimitra
know.
was a star everywhere else. How many people remember he played for Minnesota if you weren't a big hockey fan?
True.
Yeah.
Richard Park.
Yeah, Richard Park.
Bart
Cool.
Brodziak. The Vanek.
But is picking Richard Park akin to picking Gene Larkin on a Twins team? Because Richard Park had a huge moment that we all remember, but he didn't do a ton.
No, I agree, but he was always
He was
somebody,
good.
they said he skates really well and give him time and he can score. Nobody picked Setaguchi.
Right.
True.
Or
Yeah,
Charlie
so
Coyle.
He didn't.
Nobody picked Thomas
Yeah.
Vanek. Nobody picked Danny Heatley. Nobody picked Marty Havlat.
You were waiting for me to pick Vanek. I know that.
I was.
I
know,
was waiting for you to pick Vanek for sure.
honestly,
Jason
speaking of-
Bonneville.
Speaking of Vanek, I wish that either I like the Gophers more or Dave followed the Bulldogs better because I would love to do this for college too.
Yeah, college would be fun, but you're right. I would be pretty much go for North Dakota with probably one guy from St. Cloud State who you guys know who I'd pick. So I probably wouldn't come up here at all unless you guys didn't pick Conley in the first.
So do we open up a huge can of worms and do we do an all WCHA team, but we allow today's players who didn't play in the WCHA to be part of it in some program going forward?
That would be
we
interesting.
could do that.
That
It's
would
Just
be
food for thought. It's been
Well,
it's been a
would they-
draft theme in the past month or so. Speaking of
What
draft,
would they-
Dave, you had NFL draft news before we started. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, the reason that Trent Williams is not playing for your Minnesota Vikings is Trent Williams. The Vikings offered quite a bit for Mr. Williams, and Trent said no, and he ended up going to San Francisco to help the team that thinks they're going to run the Super Bowl next year, and with him they just might. The Vikings did just pick Baylor defensive tackle James Lynch. And so Baylor's coach is now coaching Jacksonville. No, wait, he is now coaching Carolina. Is that right? Brule is coaching Carolina now, right?
Yes. Yes.
And James Lynch is the guy who Brule's message came out that he was leaving, and Lynch's message came out that he was going into the draft within about 6 minutes of each other. He was Brule's guy. And he's not huge, but he is a defensive tackle that'll get after it. I think that with his pick, I think we've said goodbye to Ma'afala. I think he's gone because Lynch is the same kind of player, but bigger and is used to being a defensive tackle.
So did we say goodbye or did we just create competition? Because Hercules hasn't been bad.
No, and I like Herc. I like him a lot. He was one of my draft crushes way back. But Lynch plays the same style. Lynch is like Chris Hovan, an underrated Viking, by the way.
Okay. I would have put him the other direction.
See, I liked Hovan. I think he's the guy that happened to come and, his spot was, I'm taking Keith Millard's spot, and so Vikings.
Well, wait a minute though. That would have meant that the Vikings went some 20 years without a tackle. There's a big gap between Keith Millard and Chris Hovan.
He took Randall's spot, right?
Yes.
Yeah, John Randall's spot. So he was kind of in a bad spot.
To be honest with you, that's the guy we couldn't think of during the football draft when we were trying to think of who were the nose tackles between Kevin Williams and John Randall. You just answered it. It was Chris Hovan. So see, it all comes full circle. Like that song in the Tiger King, Circle of Life, right, Dave?
That's exactly correct.
Yes.
That's when Mick Jagger starts singing that song when they put
Yes. Yeah, that's Dave Exotic at his finest right there.
I think a WCHA draft would be good. I know that UMD drafts have been done, so let's add a little bit of spice to it and open it up to the old league.
It would be interesting. I know that there's certain players that played for certain teams that I probably just wouldn't touch because of that. So it's hard to
right. Would it end up being a UMD, Minnesota, North Dakota draft? A sprinkling of Wisconsin, a sprinkling of Denver, and that might be it.
No, a sprinkling of St. Cloud State if you don't draft
it. So we know that Dave's going to channel his inner Howie Hansen and take Judd Peterson. But after that, where do we go?
Hey, you're not supposed to give that away.
Well, yeah, Dave's team is Bordson, Connolly, Peterson.
Yes, right. And so then, based on that, you'll have Pionk and Jared Thomas.
Absolutely.
And I'll have Toninato. I'll have Toninato and Walensky.
Spiar, you're gonna take a gopher.
He's a very good friend of mine. But if we go by stats, I'm probably not taking Speed.
Nick Angel.
I could do that. Dylan Mills is one of my very good friends. Can I take Clint Johnson just on the scholarship commit at one time? I think I should be able to.
Oh, then you can
Chad Roberg. I could take Chad Roberg. I could take Chris Locker.
Yeah, Locker.
Maybe that's what we do. We could really make it fun for different schools in the area. Maybe we take a certain high school and we do a draft for them.
Can I draft Biondi already?
That could give us weeks of programming, to be honest with you.
How about we start with doing an overall high school draft? And I think in that draft, we could do 2 lines and 4 defensemen.
Ooh, I like it.
That sounds like next week. And then if we want to go specific school by school, we can do that. But let's bring in the powerhouse.
I like it because it would keep prep sports alive. Because let's face it, that was the worst, although not unexpected, news of the week. To have spring sports not happen at all.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Quite a bit on how awful this is for seniors right now, and it is. One person said something to me that's interesting, and I wanted to pose it to you guys. I was going to do it next week. Is this harder on adults that have had a chance to go through it than it is on the seniors right now who are just living through it?
That's interesting because I think, obviously, there's the argument to be made that the seniors living through it right now don't know exactly what they might be missing or not because it hasn't happened. So I guess, but there's certain things that you look forward to as well during your senior year. Obviously, I think, the sports not happening is crushing for certain players that were living for their spring sport to happen. There's baseball teams that aren't going to be able to happen. Seniors on baseball teams that are going to play college baseball somewhere, and they wanted to have an opportunity to maybe shine, or even some guys that might, have an opportunity to create, because baseball is a sport where, especially locally, some guys don't really appear until their senior year, and then they can earn themselves a scholarship. And now maybe, who knows if they'll get that chance. I don't know. And what the story is going to happen with Legion Ball as well for summer baseball, because that could carry a lot more weight now as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
No, I think it's really tough to answer, because I think it's hard on adults, but I think it's got to be much harder on the current seniors, because as I said Thursday night when the news broke that was going to happen, I think it's easier whenever you go through something tough to be able to relate it to somebody. Nobody else has gone through this. Who do you lean on for this? Nobody's had this experience. That makes it the ultimate difficult situation.
The Vikings just picked their first special team guy, and that's Troy Dye, linebacker from Oregon. Fast, not real strong. Give him some time. Sorry, back to high school.
No, that was the perfect segue to nothing. But that is NFL draft breaking news on the Northland Sports page. That's what we do. But I still think of, Topher mentioned maybe they don't know what they're missing. I hope so, because maybe it softens the blow. But I think they do. Whether or not you've got an older sibling or an older friend, you've all watched people go through different things, and you've said to yourself, selfishly or not, someday I'm going to have that moment. And now you don't. It's got to be really, really tough.
Yeah, but I also wonder how much is them hearing about everything they're missing right now hurting or helping. And I don't know if it's right or wrong, but you know what I mean?
Right.
They're being told constantly about, we feel so bad for these seniors. And they're thinking, well, maybe I am really missing out on a lot. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I don't think that makes it better without a doubt, but I think maybe 5 or 6 year olds or 10-year-olds are going, well, what are they missing? Because I don't get it. If you're a senior now, you were a junior last year. You saw everybody go through it. You know exactly what you're missing.
The one thing that I really wanted when I was a senior is the opportunity to have a skip day. Well, they got a couple of those.
That's
there
true.
Is that.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, there is that. My sister basically associates Champlin, Minnesota with Maui, Hawaii. And she has sent me a picture basically by the day of her daughters laying out in the sun on their back deck and going, not all of this is rough. Okay, I get it. And if you give them a choice between laying in the sun and taking a history exam, laying in the sun might win. But it's, okay, but forever. That's the tough part.
That's the tough part. I agree.
It's a difficult spot, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out into the future as well. I mean, even thinking about academically, people, obviously every parent's doing their best to try to distance learn and help that, but how it's going to be interesting to see how it affects positively or negatively some of these students as well going through this situation.
Yeah,
I don't know how it will work out. It's going to be an interesting study.
Right. I think that's the best question. If you look at a transcript or you look at grades and you look at the senior year spring semester, granted, you can make the argument of, are you kidding me? That's when senior slides in full effect. Nobody, puts the stamp on their academic career in the final 3 months. But if you graduate in the year that really didn't, I mean, they graduated academically, but they didn't go through all the pomp and circumstance, literally and figuratively. And you had a different level of learning. And you had a different level of how did you take the ACT or the SAT that year?
Yeah.
How do colleges judge this going forward? I know that's not sports, that's more academics, but one is directly involved with the other.
Yep, I agree. I think there's some colleges I think Stanford's one that's already changed their admission standards. I think you're right. I think admission or testing, but also just the impact that the environment, the social environment has on people. There's some people that thrive on structure, right? And they're not getting structure at home. They thrive at being around people all day. The social part of it. I mean, you have to be really self-disciplined and self-motivated to be an exceptional online student. In fact, that might be the hardest part of being an online student. And so you wonder how many kids are going to, maybe stumble a little bit here on the end because the structure and social is out of their daily life.
Right. And exactly. I think it's not only just, obviously it's affecting the seniors, but I'm thinking even younger students who are still developing those social skills and things like that. now being, in their homes and not getting that experience of meeting other kids and interacting with other people their own age, and how that's going to affect possibly development, not only socially, but also, academically as well for those. Is it going to stunt some students, or is it going to allow students who are motivated to jump past some other students as well? I don't know.
Right. No, I think that's a great point. And Topher does actually do some teaching at the college level. So it's good to hear it from you, because some kids need the social interaction. Some kids get distracted by it. Who wins?
That's exactly who ends up winning. It's depends on, I think it depends on the stage in their life and where they're growing through. Obviously, elementary school age kids, there's a lot more of the development is through the social interaction and learning how to act in a classroom full of people rather than in your bedroom by yourself, stuff like that. And it's trying to find the motivation. That's one of the biggest challenges I've noticed with my class is the sudden switch from in-person classes to online classes. And there's been I had one student say, you know what, I've never taken an online class before, and if it's online next semester, I'm going to take the semester off because I do better. He knew that he did better in an in-person setting, and he said this online thing, he said, I'm going to stick it out through the semester, right, but because we're here, but it wasn't his favorite.
Right. Is that a big part of it too? Do you have to, at that stage, these are college kids, do you know yourself well enough to be like, I will succeed here, I will not? My wife teaches 7 and 8-year-olds. If you're 12, if you're 16, do you know that?
I think that it would be fascinating to talk to Jen about how she sees, because she's worked with younger kids in the past, how she would see this impacting even the younger kids. And with what I'm doing now, you're right, Toph. When I was teaching college kids, it was like that. So many kids would, try to duck the class, to the point where I had to make my online class hybrid. So I had, a couple days a quarter that they actually came in, and then Brian would come in and talk to them. But
I did. I corrected everything Dave taught him. It was really an interesting give and take, because Dave had these lessons that he hammered home, and he would tell me about them, and I'd say, okay, take that and let's completely revise it.
But some of these parents are not prepared to be in-home teachers or superintendents, in-home principals, and they're struggling just either keeping their kid motivated, right, or in some cases even understanding the subject. If you have a child that if Avery or Aaron was here and they were learning, some sort of complicated math, I'm not sure that I could help.
Or pronunciations. You got to think about that too. But in an honest setting, I always say if there's nobody they can relate to, would you talk to somebody who's been homeschooled? Would that help you with at least part of it? Because I think the academic, it wouldn't, because it depends on the parents. Some of them may know exactly how to educate. Others, like you said, not prepared. But can you talk to somebody who's been homeschooled about, not having the interaction, not having to leave a building? Does that help at all? Because we do know some. It feels tongue in cheek, but would somebody actually, would a student that was homeschooled maybe now be a good speaker? Like, the Reinertson family did it with Eva. She's in college now. Could she help kids?
Yeah, I suspect so. And one of the things that'll be, speaking of homeschooling, one of the things, the old common stereotype, the old stereotype of we're just taking our ball and going home. Now everybody is seeing what it goes into from a teaching my kid at home process. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just we're not gonna let these kids learn in the school. There's a lot of work that goes into it as well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see all this stuff. And I think the biggest adjustment is different. I mean, homeschooling, if you're planning on homeschooling, you put in the work, you're preparing before it begins. This, nobody had a chance to prepare for. This is happening next week.
Yeah, this was press conference. Right, this was press conference on Sunday. Get your lesson plan ready for Monday.
Exactly, and it's, hey, parents, I know that you're now learning how to work from home, something you didn't plan to do. But by the way, you're also going to have to make sure your kids log into Google Classroom 4 times a day and do all their lessons at the same time you're trying to make a living so that you can continue to pay your mortgage. It's a whole blender full of different circumstances that nobody planned for, and everyone's just trying to make the best of.
No question about that. So to bring it back into sports, to close it up, if there is a silver lining in spring season being canceled, we get to do one of our favorite things early, and that's give our NSP awards away. That'll do next week. But at the same time, it's a bummer because it shocked me how many spring sports teams were part of that a year ago.
We had such a fantastic spring sport season. You think I can't say names? Try to say spring sports season 5
I'll
times.
give you the benefit of the doubt on that one. It's a struggle.
We had such a fantastic season last year in our area. It's going to be it was not easy, but it really was feel good stories. It was superstar teams. It was players. So this year, it's good. You're right. With the spring season non-existent, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, do we have to have a category of the hypothetical team of the year? And we put Marshall baseball in there. We put Denfeld baseball in there. We put East baseball in there. We put the softball teams in. Duluth lacrosse never got to play. It's going to be a shorter NSP awards this year. It's going to be fewer nominees. And it's probably just as painful to some of those great fall and winter athletes who love their spring sport as well.
Yeah, 100% true.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult transition, obviously, losing some of those teams that and some of those strong spring sport athletes that were, en route to having a strong spring season. So it's going to be different, but there certainly was plenty of successes in the Northland in the fall and the winter all over the area. It's going to be a fun time to look back and think about those times.
All right, so that's going to do it for us because the video started before we recorded today with Topher showing pictures of dogs, and my dog just ran back in the house. And that's usually my cue that your recording 2-hour window is over. So keep checking us out on YouTube. Topher, speaking of the YouTube videos that we post, there's also some poll questions people can take part in, correct? Because it's been you and me voting, I think, or Kelly maybe.
Yeah, I've been posting, just messing around with the YouTube editor a little bit. There's a little eye, and sometimes a poll question will pop up on the screen. When you're doing it, feel free to click those polls, and I'll put them up there again today. Usually, it has to do with who you think drafted the best team, or who you think should have gone first overall in a respective draft. And also, don't be afraid to click the like button down below this and give it a like and help promote these videos.
Now we've made it to YouTube. When we're ending our videos with like and subscribe, I feel like we're ultimately the YouTube sensation. And I'll tell you what, in terms of who drafted the best team, unless Russia hacks YouTube, I've got no shot.
Unless Russia, if Russia hacks YouTube, they're going to keep putting in there Kirilov.
Right, but at least I can get votes, is what I'm saying. All right, guys.
And also, I want to say it's Kaprasov, but I love it.
What?
Right. The show, we got to edit Dave's pronunciation one more time.
We have to have pre-show meetings.
Here, Dave. To close, I'm going to make it up to you. I'm going to make it up to you to close. Because there's one thing that a friend or relative, I can't remember who, of yours didn't like about our first show in the new studio. What did they say about your name? You need to say your own name.
Oh, yes.
So we are the guys from Northland Sports Page. I'm Brian Prudhomme.
Oh, I'm supposed to say it.
He's not used to it. I was giving him his big moment. All right, let's do it again. Take 2, 3, 2, and 1. We're the guys from Topher can't keep it together. This is great. Topher can't handle it right now, and I'm not far behind him. So this is like the pickle guy moment. 3, 2, and 1. We are the guys from the Northland Sports Page. I'm Brian Prudhomme.
I'm Dave Cook.
Hi, I'm Topher Davis.
And we're out of here. See you next weekend. Have a good one.